You have been lied to by all the OnlyFans gurus, all the misinformation that's out in this space, that scaling an OnlyFans management agency is hard, finding models is hard, delivering results is hard. And that's because everyone overcomplicates the fuck out of this industry. Everyone thinks that adding more complexity to their agency is going to help them scale, and no one has a fucking clue what they're talking about. Now, I've scaled my agency to over 500 grand a month profit, not inflow revenue profit, right? And so I'm literally going to show you in this video how I made my first 100 grand a month with this business model. And so even if you want to just go make 50 grand a month or 10 grand a month, then you can do that as well. But this is literally going to show you the path to get to 100 grand a month. And I am not going to try and sell you anything. This is literally a video from my partnership program, which is very fucking expensive, and you can't just join. Like, you have to be specifically selected and qualified to join. And so all I ask for you in this video is to just give me your undivided attention. All I ask is to just pay attention, because this video has a potential to change your life and your agency. No bullshit. I'm just going to give you straight value, and if you actually implement the things I talk about in this video and take it seriously, and don't just go goof off and then go back to doing what you're doing because it's easy and comfortable, then getting to 100 grand a month is going to be easy. And so that being said, give me your undivided attention, put your phone down, tell your mom that you're about to create generational wealth and not to ask you to do the dishes, and watch this fucking video. So yeah, what I want to go over, right, is how to actually scale your agency to 100 grand a month, right? And the point of this is there's no one strategy that's going to allow you to scale your agency to 100K a month. There's no one template, there's no one playbook, there's no one funnel, there's no one TikTok hack, no platform, contract, offer, etc. Right? It's all about the foundations and 7-figure principles that you need to inject in your business. And so with the right foundations and principles, all you need is hard work and a little bit of creativity, and that's it, right? And now rule number 1 is going to be actually having an irresistible offer, right? And so like one stupid, simple, irresistible offer for one niche, right? So your clients, your models, they need to feel stupid saying no to your offer. So most agencies feel like the more the better. So they decide to offer 8 offers, 6 services, 3 niches. So for example, the amount of OnlyFans management agencies I see that will do chatting for some models, just chatting, and then they'll do just marketing, and then they'll do full service management, and then they will offer different things to different parts of the market. Then they'll go after models making less than 5 grand a month. They'll go after models making 50 grand a month. They'll just take what they can get, right? But that doesn't scale because that's super complex, because you never actually become good, or you can never systemize anything. And so it's always just a mess. And so you're just always going to be an employee in your business, right? And so in reality, if you actually want to scale to 100 grand a month, you just need one of everything, right? One niche, one market segment, one offer, one service, right? And so like when it actually comes to creating that irresistible offer, you have to understand acquisition at a fundamental level, right? And so like there's really only like 6 pillars of acquisition. And all acquisition is converting a human from a stranger to a client, right? And to do that, you need 6 things. And that's going to be drive. So an unconscious driving force of human behavior, the core and root reason for taking an action or making a decision. And so there needs to be some type of drive to turn a human, like from a stranger to a client, right? There needs to be some type of goal, right? There needs to be a future situation that they want to live in, manifest, or see come true. There needs to be some type of problem. So an obstacle standing in the way of them achieving their goal, right? And so with OnlyFans, that could be a model that's just struggling to get her time back because maybe she's making 100 grand a month and she just has no time to do anything else, right? And next you got pain, right? You also need pain, an unpleasant feeling or emotion created by the problem that they're facing. And these are really like this is just the basic psychology behind why strangers, models that you're reaching out to, that you're speaking to, convert to clients. And this is really like the catalyst for actually creating a good offer. You need to understand the psychology behind these principles at this level, right? And so you've got drive, you've got goals, you've got problems, you've got pain. Next, you've got action, right? So mental decisions and physical behavior taken to alleviate pain. And then lastly, the 6th pillar is confidence, right? So having faith, belief, and trust in someone, aka could be your company or company, right, to solve their problems. And so rule number 1, of client acquisition is to focus on those 6 pillars, right? Which again is drive, goal, problem, pain, action, and confidence. And rule number 2 of client acquisition is don't forget rule number 1, which is drive, right? And which is the focus on the 6 pillars, right? That's rule number 1. And so client acquisition is simply just understanding and leveraging their core drives, recognizing their goal, so a desired future state someone has, defining and understanding the obstacles to said desired state, creating and recognizing pain created by the problem, eliciting decisions and actions that alleviate pain created by problems, building confidence in the person's perception of your ability to solve. And so all of these 6 things are required to acquire a client, aka convert a stranger into a customer, right? So drives create goals, goals create problems, problems create pain, pain creates action, right? And then action requires confidence. And so those are the first principles of psychology behind client acquisition. And so until you like really understand that at a fundamental level, then acquisition is probably going to be different to you. And I'm not going to, I could spend the next 3 hours talking about it, but I'm working on a module to add on this, really like diving deep behind what is client acquisition and how you actually attach that to creating offers. But I just want to give you guys this scheme right now. And so to create an offer, like you need to understand that because you need to understand acquisition. Otherwise, you can't create a good offer that people feel stupid saying no to, right? And so an offer is not just about like the value stack and the things that you actually deliver. Like we do this, we do this, we do this. An offer is a combination of things, right? And so, who do you help? What's your promise? What's your strategy to get you to that promise? What's the methodology? What's the factors of value? What's the guarantee? And then what is the outcome, right? So if you work with us, you'll either get X or get Y, right? And so like when you think of an offer, that's what you want to be thinking about, right? And so that's rule number 1 of scaling your agency to 100 grand a month is having an irresistible offer. Next is going to be value actions, right? So rule number 2 of simplicity scales, rule number 2 of how to actually scale your agency to 100 grand a month is going to be value actions, right? So most agencies focus on the wrong things. They focus on websites, what their first initial outreach message is going to be, black hat marketing, wherever, right? It could be anything. But a logo, for example, just all stuff that doesn't actually matter, right? But if you actually want to scale your agency to 100K per month, the only things you should actually be focusing on is generating appointments, closing those appointments, delivering amazing results, and then systemizing and automating those 3 steps, right? There's nothing else. There's nothing else that matters. Like website, all this shit is negligible. These are the only actual things that matter. And this is universal across any agency business model. This works, right? This is, if you can do this, do this, do this, and do this, then you'll be at 100 grand a month in 3 months, right? Like literally, like it's really not difficult. And so like this is all you need to matter. This is all you need to worry about. And so if this right now isn't happening, then fuck the logo, fuck the website, fuck everything else. This is what should be your sole focus in solving, right? This should be it. If you can do this, but you can't do this, then this should be your sole fucking focus. If you can do these 2, but you can't do this, then this should be your sole focus. And if you can do all these, and you just have to figure out how to systemize and automate it so you can replace yourself and don't become an employee in your business, right? And so these are the only actual things that matter, but everyone overcomplicates it. And so everyone thinks you need to add a bunch of crazy steps and you need to do all these little things and you need to add complexity and do this and do that. It doesn't, you're not going to get to 100 grand a month when it's just that much of a mess, right? Simplicity scales. That's the message I want to get across, right? And so you need to figure out how to do these 4 things. And if you can do that, then you're going to win. It doesn't matter what you do. But again, this is going to come down to offer, right? This is going to come down to your sales. This is, and also your offer. This is going to come down to your service delivery, right? And then this is going to come down to your hiring and all that side of the things, right? Now, rule number 3 is the math, right? And so a lot of you guys, a lot of OFM agencies always have this big goal in mind of 10K per month, maybe 30 grand a month, maybe 50 grand a month, maybe 100 grand a month, maybe 500 grand a month, right? But most of you have no idea what it actually takes to get it. And so I like to call it the raw math, right? So let's just take a random service business, for example, just because it's easier to explain the math. So obviously, if you're taking 50%, it depends on the client. So it would be a terrible example. But let's just say there's someone in you that doesn't do the traditional agency model and he is doing a TikTok marketing service and he's charging for OnlyFans models and he's charging 1.5 grand a month and his average retention is 5 months, right? So he earns about 7.5K per client. So to make 100 grand a month, that person needs 13 to 14 sales per month. Now, out of every 4 meetings he closes, he has one client, let's just say on average. So to do that, he needs 56 meetings per month to close 14 clients, right? And so out of every 100 DMs I send, he has 2 meetings, so he needs to send 2,800 cold outreaches, cold emails, whatever you want to say, a month to get 56 meetings, right? This is an example of like the broader methodology of how you usually get 100K. So you need to know that for your specific service, wherever you're offering, right? If you're doing 50%, let's just say, the average client you sign is making 5 grand a month, the same thing applies, right? Okay, so you take 50%, she's making 5 grand a month, usually lasts 5 grand a month, but usually within those 5 months, we're able to get her to actually 25K a month. So on average, she's worth X amount. It actually took us about 200 outreach attempts usually to get 2 meetings. And so if we want to get more clients, we need to do this and need to do that. And you need to literally sit there and figure out the math of like how you actually get to 100 grand a month, right? So this is like an example, right? So if out of every 100 DMs you're sending, you get 2 meetings booked, and you want to get to a specific point, obviously the math needs to add up for you. But in this scenario, you'll need to send 2,800 outreaches, right? A month to get 56 meetings. And if you're closing at this percentage, then you'll get 14 clients if you have 56 meetings. That's an example, right? You might close 100% of the time. So if you can book 56 meetings and maybe you get 56 clients, right? And so you need to figure out the actual math. Like, what is the math for you? And I use this broad example just so you can understand, because obviously everyone in you is different. And everyone does different stuff, but this is just easy to understand for everyone, right? Just, 1.5K a month, average retention rate's 5 months, so 7.5K per client, right? That's the LTV. So you need to know this, right? Like really, really know where it takes to actually get there. Otherwise, you're just always just gonna be stuck and wondering why you're not getting it, right? So everyone has this big goal in mind, but has no idea how to get it. So do the math, make a game plan for the number you need to hit to get your goal. And you also need to understand your margins and what you need to invest to make it happen, right? So you can do this math. Okay, great. You know the methodology, you know the math it takes to get to wherever your goal is, 50K a month, 100K a month, 30K a month, 500 grand a month. But what are you investing right now? How much is the team expenses for that specific scenario? What are you going to need? Are you going to need more VAs? Are you going to need more chatters? Okay, cool. So what are you paying the chatters currently? Is that going to go up? Is that going to go down? Is that going to stay the same? Like, this is why you have to have a simple system. And this is why you need to have simplicity. And like I said, if you don't have simplicity, this is going to get super complex, because if you can't actually build a system and you don't actually have any processes around that, then it's going to be a nightmare. Because if for one client you're just doing chatting, then the other client you're doing chatting and fucking TikTok marketing and Instagram, and then for another client you're doing like all these other different things, and then you have like chatters from the Philippines on that client, which is like $3 an hour plus 4%, but then you have English chatters on the other one. It's going to be an absolute mess, and you're just adding way too much complexity. So get rid of all that complexity, and you almost need to productize your service, right? So how can we get a client, and how can we deliver the same results for every client, and just keep it that way, right? Just systemize that entire thing. Just keep it simple. This is what we pay our chatters. This is how our team, this is exactly how we scale. Just really lean out your business and really make it simple. The more complexity you add, the more difficult it's going to be to scale, right? Simplicity scales, right? Rule number 4, keep it simple. Kind of just touched on it, but keep it simple, right? One niche slash audience slash market segment, whatever you want to call it, one offer, one traffic source, one sales script and process, one way of delivering results, one goal, right? Simple things scale. The more complicated you make your business, the less money you make. And not only the less money you make, but this goes into the next one, is build a business or a job, right? Because if you do not keep it simple, and the more complex you make your business, you will build a job, not a business. You will just become an employee in your business. And your business is meant to work for you. You are not meant to work for your business. What is the point in making 100 grand a month if you are working 14, 15 hours a day, stressed to the teeth? Everything's fucking always falling apart. One thing breaks over at this part of the organization and there's a fire over there. So you have to go and put that fire out. Then you put the fire out, everything's fine again. And then something breaks over in this department. Now you've got to go and put that fire out. By the time you've put that fire out, you've got like a day to breathe. And then all of a sudden you feel burnt out, but then something else breaks over you. And now you've got to go and fix that, right? Build a business, not a job. So there's no point in making 100 grand a month if your business is super complex and there's tons of moving parts. If you have everything systemized and automated, and automations doesn't mean like coding and software and fancy stuff. It just means you need to be able to hire people to do those things for you, right? And so you need a good system to be able to do that, because if your system is just a mess and there's all different things happening and these chatters are getting paid this and the other chatters are getting paid this amount of money and we don't do this for that client, but we do it for this client, it's just going to be an absolute fucking nightmare. And you can't build any system around that that's sustainable. You won't see sustainable growth. You can't automate that because it's a fucking mess, right? And so you need to keep it simple, right? That's so key. And this is what everyone fails to realize, right? So simple things scale. The more complicated you make your business, the less money you make, right? And again, build a job, not a business, because at the end of the day, what is the actual point? Like you work so hard to just you never get the freedom to do it. You are just may as well go and work a 9 to 5. Like you just have autonomy and that's it. Like you don't actually have true freedom. Like if you have an agency, or at least and again, this is not for everyone. I'm not shouting at anyone, right? I'm just giving you the play, right? Because you don't want to have this scenario where you have an agency and if you leave, everything breaks. Like if you remove yourself from your agency right now, ask yourself a question, would everything break? Okay, and if it would, then you need to figure out how you're actually gonna sustain that long term. And you don't, yeah, like I said, you don't have to do that now. You don't have to like go and hire people and do all this and automate it now, but you need to plan ahead and you need to come up with this, like how you're actually going to get there. Because then when you're at, if your goal is 100 grand a month, you're at the 30 grand a month mark and you haven't implemented these things, like for example, oh, at 30K a month, we need to probably hire these specific people that's going to replace me of this part of the organization. So I no longer have to be involved with the traffic side of things and I can go and focus on the higher leverage stuff, which is going to be one of these four things, right? And so like you need to think ahead and you need to have that plan in place. Otherwise, you will never get to 100 grand a month, right? And if you do, you won't sustain it, or you won't grow, right? And or if you do, you'll just be super stressed and you'll be an employee in your business, right? So that's rule number 5, build a business or a job, right? Rule number 6 is speed. So most OFM agencies and most agencies, most businesses sit on good systems for too long and work for healthy growth, right? So the thing is, systems don't necessarily last forever. And so systems eventually will break and die out. And so when that system dies out, for example, if most agencies sit on good systems and that system dies out, then they fail and they never scale to the levels they could have if they just put a little bit more into it. So let's just say you find a system that's working really well on TikTok, for example, and or YouTube or wherever. It doesn't matter. It could be anything. Could be a client acquisition system, right? Let's just say you find a Loom system, right? Where you're getting a VA to send 100 Loom VSLs to models every single day, and no one else in the industry is doing it because everyone else is spamming models with big outreach messages and this and that. If that system starts to work, then you need to milk the fuck out of that system. Don't just continue doing 100 a day. You need to go and figure a way how you do 1,000 a day, how you do 10,000 a day. Because eventually that system will die out and it'll stop working, and other people will start to copycat you, and it will not work anymore, right? And so that system alone, if you figure that out and you start doing it, that can take you to 100 grand a month in the next month or in 3 months' time, right? And so like when you're doing stuff like that, you need to take advantage of it, right? And so that's going to be super key, because eventually that system will die out, right? And so when you find something that works, just go all in, right? Just go all in. Because a lot of people simply think that it is impossible to go from 0 to 100 grand per month in a short period of time. But that belief is not based on fact, it's based on fear, right? And so if you look at my agency, for example, right, we scaled the business to multiple 6 figures in less than 3 months. But before that, we failed for like 6 months straight. So like we didn't have a clue what we was doing. We was trying to add so much complexity. We was doing all the things I've just talked about wrong. And it was just an absolute nightmare. And we cracked like 10 grand a month, went back to 0. And then we was like, looked at everything and was like, right, okay, this is too complex. We can't actually do anything. And I actually bought a program and sort of like figured a bunch of stuff out. And I was like, right, okay, we need to do this. And so within 3 months, then we hit 100 grand a month because we found a cold outreach system that was just absolutely insane, which allowed us to just get like so many appointments and just get some of the best models that we still work with today. And we just milked it. And now everyone copies that system and did for a short period of time. And now it doesn't really work anymore. And so a system will die out, and we milked that system, and that was able to propel us to over 100 grand a month in 3 months, right? And so like a system will break or will die out at some point. And so you need to take advantage of that. And you always need to be trying to figure out like what is going to be that thing that can work, right? And obviously, to find those good systems, you need to have everything else in place, right? It needs to be simple. You need to have a good offer. You need to know the math. You need to do the value actions. You need to understand all of this stuff for this to work, right? This flows into each one, right? And so again, rule number 6 is speed, right? Um, and so again, we was able to do that because we had a system that booked appointments, got sales, and delivered crazy results. And instead of us just sitting on it and just staying at the 100 appointments a day, we was like at 100 outreaches a day. We was like, oh my God, this is working so well. We need to figure out like how the fuck we scale this, right? And so you can scale each individual system if it's simple, right? So at that point, we wasn't trying to do paid ads and this and that and all these other different things. We was just trying to like book as many appointments as possible because we knew what we were doing with TikTok at the time like really well, and we was doing it better than anyone else. And I was like, right, we just need to find a way to just keep booking more appointments because this is working. And so that's what we did. And we went all in, right? And so you need to do the same thing. But the thing is, no one gives her enough time either, right? So like there's a lot of people in here that try something like once, or they try a couple of times, or they do 100 outreaches on Monday and then they miss Tuesday, and they do another 100 outreaches on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday and Saturday. They might do it for like a week or 2 weeks, and they miss days, and they don't have any actual like system in place. And they're like, oh, I'm not getting any results with outreach. Well, it's like outreach is a proven system that works, but there's tons of different ways to get outreach. And so, like I mentioned right at the start, with the right foundations and principles, all you need is a little bit of hard work and a bit of creativity. And so you can't really say a system doesn't work until you've at least tested it for like 30 days. And you've probably need to have done at least like fucking 3,000 outreaches at the minimum. And if at 3,000 outreaches you didn't manage to book an appointment, then maybe you look at outreach as a specific system, and you're like, okay, how can we make this better? Do we maybe now tweak a variable? So let's not change the whole system, but let's change one variable. So maybe let's change our page and make that better. And then you do the same test again for 30 days. And then maybe you still don't get any results. Okay, so the page change didn't work. Okay, what's the next variable we can change? Okay, let's change the instead of sending like a short message, let's send a loom that's like a VSL that's just like a 15-minute video. It's going to explain to them how we can help them grow their OnlyFans and blah 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 blah. Let's try that, and let's just get a VA to send 100 a day. Let's try that. Oh, that actually worked quite well. Okay, cool. Now let's just optimize this, and now let's continue to change a variable or add a variable and see what happens, right? Like that's what you need to do. But no one gives stuff like no one even wants to test for 30 days because everyone wants to get rich super quick. But once you find that one thing, that system that works, that's when you fucking go all in, right? And that's what can put you ahead above all these other agencies because everyone just has shiny object syndrome, and everyone just jumps from one thing to the next because everyone seems to think there's just one playbook that can fix their problem, or one funnel, or one TikTok hack, or one contract, or one offer, or one platform, or one playbook, or one template, or one strategy. And they just think this is going to be this easy fix, but they fail to do all this stuff. They fail to actually have a strategy of how they're going to get it and a methodology. They fail to keep it simple because they add more complexity. They build a business or a job. They don't act with speed. They don't actually test stuff. They don't actually give anything enough time. It's like, for example, if you have an offer and let's just say you have an offer, you understand how to you understand how to generate appointments, but you're failing to close appointments. Let's just say you take 3 sales calls with a model and all 3 of them do not close. A lot of people at that point be like, fuck, I've had 3 calls and 3 didn't close. My offer must be shit or my sales pitch, so I'm just gonna get rid of it and do something else. It's like, no, like wait until you've had fucking 30 sales calls. And once you've had 30 sales calls, if you've still closed none or closed below 25%, then look at changing the thing. But 3 is like not enough, right? And so like this applies to everything, right? Like let's just say you are taking 5 sales calls a day with models because you just really crack the code on how to book appointments. Well, one day that sales rep that's taking the calls, or you that are taking the calls, for example, could have 0 closes, but a day later could have 8 closes out of 8, right? And so like it's the averages, your averages out, right? And so you always want, like for example, with a sales call, you always want, for example, at least 30 clients if you've changed your offer and service to figure out if it's actually going to work. And that applies to like everything. If it's outreach, you're going to need 30 days and probably send 3,000 outreaches or more, right? And so like that's something you need to figure out, and that's something you're gonna have to do with testing, right? And so that comes into speed, right? And then the next is going to be building systems, right? Rule number 7, building systems. And so like these are the only things that really matter at a 100K a month agency. And so like system 1 is going to be your appointment booking system. Like how do we book appointments, right? Your system 2 is going to be how do we close those appointments? Your sales system, right? System 3 is going to be delivery, right? How do we actually get our clients results in a productized way? So we can pretty much guarantee results with this specific client, with this specific market segment that we're going after. And it's really simple. And even though she's not going to be going from, 2 grand a month to 90 grand a month in 1 month, we're going to guarantee like 20% growth sustainably over the next year, and she will be making 60 grand a month by the end of the year, right? How do we do that? What's the delivery? What do we do? Are we going to focus on TikTok? Are we going to focus on organic as a broad term? Are we going to focus on paid methods? Are we going to focus on dating apps? What are we going to focus on? Let's just do one thing, because we don't want to focus on a bunch of different things, because that's where everyone goes wrong, right? System 4 is then how do we automate that, right? So we've figured out the system for appointment booking. This is where it is. We have a VA that sends looms that does this, and that just repeats himself. Then the sales system is once those people watch the looms, they then going to book a call, and then that call is going to go to our closer, and our closer is going to close the model and get onboarded. Once they've been onboarded, then the delivery system builds, and that's where we then do XYZ in the delivery system. How then do we build system 4, which is to automate these 3 systems, right? Okay, so for appointments, we can hire a VA to send appointments, so I don't have to do it myself anymore. And we can hire someone to create the evergreen VSL. Okay, cool. How do we then automate the sales? Okay, so we can get a closer in, so I don't have to close the sales calls anymore, and we can have an automated onboarding process when they sign the contract. Okay, cool. Right, delivery. How do we do that? Right, for delivery, we're going to get in a creative director that can do organic, and he's going to build up their entire team, and he's going to build the system. And so we don't even have to worry. Okay, cool. So we've automated the 3 most important steps. Now we can actually scale to 100 grand a month. And at that point, now it's just about like hiring. How do we build a system around hiring? How do we retain these clients that we're getting through these 3 phases? How do we actually track data and track results to see how we can improve and to see what we're lacking on? And then referrals, right? And so on. There's obviously multiple other systems, right? And so like, and then a system has systems within it, right? And so like an appointment generating system, for example, which is like system 1, like that has systems within it, right? So this could be a VA sending 100 Loom video DMs a day, and then it could be another system where you are doing fucking Facebook ads, right? And there's all these systems within the system, right? And so like I know this is like probably maybe losing a lot of people, but this is like super fucking important. Like I cannot stress this enough. Like you need to know and understand this shit. And then the last thing is gonna be building a team, right? And so rule number 8, once you figured out how to actually build these systems, and again, systems is not like this is another thing. Systems is not just like something you like download on your PC, and it's like this systems is just like I'm gonna make a video on explaining systems at a deeper level, but it's really simple to understand. It's just like how you do something, right? Like that's just pretty much what it is, and then how do you do it, and then how can you get other people to repeat that process, like a repeatable process, right? Rule number 8 is building a team, right? And so when you build a team and you build systems and this kind of thing, you're going to go through the evolution phases of business. And I've explained this many times. But building a team is, and again, like everyone's at different stages. And so like I'm not expecting people that are like, you can't just jump from like, doing 5 grand a month like by yourself to fucking doing all this shit and building a team and like outsourcing everything and doing all this stuff, right? And so just to give you guys a broad understanding of all this so you don't get lost and don't go trying to jump there, you will have to go through these phases, and you could be in any of these phases right now. But everyone starts off in the doing it phase, right? And the doing it phase is where you are doing all this yourself and you're trying to figure out yourself. You're building your offer, you're trying to figure out what niche to go after, what offer to put out there, what is going to be your service. You're trying to figure out how to generate appointments, close appointments. You're sending the outreaches yourself. You're doing the sales calls yourself. You're doing the organic strategies yourself. Like you're trying to systemize and automate those things. Like you're coming up with a strategy. Like that is where a lot of people will be at. And that's the doing it phase. And it's volatile as fuck and it hurts like shit, right? Until you get an actual process and then you prove that process and it starts to feel good and stable. And so an example of that could be, let's just say you figure out how to generate appointments. Because remember, I said the only four things that actually matter is generating appointments, closing appointments, delivering results, and systemizing and automating. Let's just say you're doing it yourself and you crack the fucking code on generating appointments and you find that one fucking system that works, right? And like I said, you go all in on that, right? You figure out, boom, okay, it's working. You've proved the process now, right? And so now it starts to feel good because something's working and you know that that works. And so now it starts to feel good and it gets stable. And maybe you sign a client and maybe you hit your first 10K a month, right? And maybe you now know you can stay at 10 grand a month because you've proven some type of process, right? And this can be in all aspects, right? This can be in the closing aspect, this can be in the delivery aspect. And so this is how it's going to be, right? And so it hurts, you're doing it yourself, it's volatile, then it starts to feel good because you prove some type of process, and then it's kind of stable again, right? But then you go to the next phase, which, okay, you've proved that appointment generating system. You figured out what you're going to do. You've been sending these specific, let's just say you cracked the code on cold outbound, which is outreach, right? You've cracked the code on outreach and you've been sending like these Loom videos that, are working really well in this specific way. And you're sending like 500 a day through this method you found. Okay, now there's no point in you continuing to do it because you've proven that process. So now you have to go to teaching someone else to do it. So you hire someone, you teach them to do it, right? This is where it starts to hurt because they're not going to do it as well as you, right? And this is where you start to actually like systemize and optimize. And until you systemize and optimize, it's going to hurt and it's going to be volatile, right? And so you go to teaching it and you're teaching that person, right? Look, this is what I did. And this is what worked. And so I need you to do the same thing. And you're jumping on calls and you're teaching it and you're actually because you're not doing it anymore, you're not getting the results you once was. And so your agency starts to get volatile again, right? And so at each point you hit a floor, right? So it starts to hurt, it's super fucking volatile. You're doing it yourself and then you prove a process and you hit a floor and it starts to feel good, right? And you're like, fuck yes, I'm making 10 grand a month. I figured out this like outreach method that's scaring me to sign clients and life's really good. But it doesn't make sense for me to do it anymore because I need to now be focusing on like service delivery to deliver for my clients. So I have to teach someone to do this process that I just proved. And so you go to teaching it, and again, maybe they don't perform, and this is where you have to make the harsh realization that no one is ever going to care about your business as much as you, and no one is going to do it as good as you. And so sometimes you might have to hire three people just to replace you, right? And maybe that's how it is. And so this is the teaching phase where you're going to try to teach them and your results are going to lack because you're not doing it anymore because you've got to teach this other person to do it, but they're not getting as good results as you. And until you've taught them to do it fully and you've optimized and systemized this so you can now hire three people to do the same thing to replace you, until you do that, it's going to hurt and it's going to be volatile. But once you figure that out, that's when you actually have a system, right? So that's when you start to optimize and systemizing it. So you're learning a lot from teaching people how you do what you do, which is also why in the doing it phase is so important to build assets. So let's just take outreach for the example again. Let's just say you crack this process at outreach and you've like figured out this way and you're getting like 5 appointments a day from this outreach system that you're using and you've proven that process throughout that entire period, you need to be building assets because you're going to be teaching people eventually. And if you don't build assets, then when it comes to teaching them, you're going to be like, oh, fuck, wait, how did I do that thing again? Like, what was it? Like, I forgot. I haven't done it for a while. Like, how do I teach it? Whereas if you just build a fucking war chest, so like, for example, let's just say you found this one outreach method that's working really well. You need to document the fuck out of it. What's your thought process? How did you create it? How are you thinking about this? How are you doing that? And you just build out this entire fucking SOP, almost this entire doc, this entire war chest of everything that if someone else, you was to hire someone else, you could just give it to them and they could binge all that information and be like, okay, I understand. This is easy. And that means this phase where it's all volatile, it's gonna last. It's not gonna last as long because you'll be able to optimize and systemize it earlier, because while you were in the doing it phase, you've built assets, right? You've built assets for the next person for you to pass her on to, right? And so at that point, it starts that you optimize, you start to systemize the business, shit starts to feel good again. You've got 3 people that are doing that outreach system that are crushing it. And maybe you scale that up because you want to scale even further because you're just going horizontally, going crazy, right? And so you hire fucking 10 people, they're all doing this, you're crushing it, everything's good, it's optimized and systemized. Okay, at that point, now you've got to actually go to managing it, right? And so this is where that first guy you hired to do it is kind of starting to drop off because he knows how to do it, but he hasn't been incentivized, or he's been doing it for 3 months and he's just not performing at the same level because he doesn't care as much and life gets in the way. And this is where you sort of have to really this is where you really have to like set expectations. You have to keep people accountable, and this is where you learn to manage it, right? And while you're learning to manage it, people are going to drop off, and then you're going to have to go back to the teaching it, and it's going to be a fucking nightmare, and everything is going to get volatile again. But throughout this entire process, you will be moving up, right? So let's just say this first floor year is when you hit 10 grand a month on your own. And then the second floor is 30 grand a month when you start teaching and you've optimized it. And then it's volatile again. You might go from 30 grand a month back to 15K a month or back to 20 grand a month. And you might almost lose the fucking business. Like, I mean, this just happens, right? This is the evolution phase of business. And so then all of a sudden, you start to manage it, you're figuring it out, you got accountable expectations, then you hit that next floor, and that's that 100K mark, right? But if you don't do this and you don't follow this, then you're never actually going to get it, or it's not going to be sustainable. And so, like, well, that means if you go from doing it and you just try to start managing it, you jump to try and managing it, it's not going to work because you miss this middle part, which is super key, right? And so, like, I'll show you an actual example of what that looks like, right? Let's just say, right, I was doing outreach by myself, right, for a while. Okay, cool. When I just did, this is just me giving an example, right? So, right, I'm doing outreach by myself, and I figured out this one system that no one else is doing that is working really well. Okay, cool. I'm now building assets. So let's just say I build out a Notion doc where I'm like documenting everything, right? Once I've built out that doc and I've built out like what I'm doing, let's just say the 3-step conversational flow, like, okay, this is working really well. Boom, 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 boom. Right. I'm starting to build out assets, right? And so I'm starting to build out assets. So I'm starting to actually I've proved this process. And now I'm going to go and hire someone, right? So I go and hire someone that I can now teach everything I know, because it doesn't make sense for me to be doing this anymore, because I can't scale otherwise, if I try and scale and I'm still doing this and trying to do everything else, remember, switching tasks kill productivity. And remember, you will become the biggest bottleneck of your business, right? And so you never want to be in that position. And so you have to spend money on talent so you don't become the biggest bottleneck in your business. If you try and hoard all your money and you try and do everything, you try and stay in this doing it phase, you are going to become an employee in your business, and you're going to build a job, not a business. And remember, you want to build a business, not a job, because what's the point, right? And so your business is meant to work for you, which is why you need systems and is why you need to prove a process, right? And so, okay, I built all these assets. Now, when I go to teaching, I can just be like, yo, here's the portal. This is everything you need. Do this, do this. These are your standards. These are expectations. These are all the training. This is the actual workflow we use that's working right now. This is the system. This is the outreach system. This is everything you need. Boom, 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 boom. Then I build out like an actual fucking like an actual working kit for them, right? So they don't get lost, all right? So outreach, boom, we're killing outreach. Okay, cool. This is what it is. I'm hiring you. This is what time zone you're working in. I build out everything, right? These are your initial onboarding tasks. This is your job description. I've given you guys all this in the Discord, right? This is your role. This is your mission. This is what your outcome is. This is your targets, right? These are your expectations. And then because you've built this out, you can track. And when it comes to managing it, it doesn't get as hard because you've got everything new and you've got data, right? And so like these are all the things you need, boom, boom, boom. And you just give them everything so you can't fail. But if you don't have this stuff and you don't actually take the time to do the boring shit, you're just gonna try and doing it yourself, and you're going to prove a process, and you're just going to be bouncing between these phases forever. And if you do go and try teaching it, you'll be like, fuck, it's not working. Let me just go back to doing myself because I can do a better job myself, right? But you have to go through this volatile phase where it starts to hurt to optimize and systemize something to where it feels good again. And then you have to go over to managing it. But managing it becomes easier when you can have accountable expectations, right? So when you actually set the standards and you build stuff out like this and you give them all the assets that you've built out from when you were doing it yourself, and you've got everything in place and you're tracking, you've given them trackers to track, right? Once you've got all that stuff, it becomes a lot easier in the managing phase, and it's gonna be less volatile. And so if you don't do this, then you're either gonna be like I said, stuck in a doing it phase or a teaching it phase or bouncing between the two. And if you don't do this or you try and jump from doing it to managing it, you're either going to burn out, which most people will do because they never want to scale because they do everything themselves or they don't want to spend money or they've got 10 grand in their bank. And if I said, look, you need to put that entire 10 grand in your bank account into these specific roles, like you need to go and hire this talent and you've got to fucking eat there, you've got to eat, go into zero for a bit so you can actually get to the next phase. Most people will be like, nah, I'm just going to continue doing myself and wait and pay with time, right? And so at that point, you're just going to get stuck there and you're either going to burn out or you're going to have to try again, right? You have to fucking strip your agency down and try again. But if you actually follow everything I've said in this, then you will see success, right? And so the last part is rule 9, which is relentless product improvement, right? So how do you compete with an agency, for example, who goes all in on TikTok? How do you compete? When you're doing dating apps, paid ads, GGs, Reddit, IG, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, strip chat, etc. And then my agency's only doing TikTok, for example, or only doing short form, or only doing organic content, wherever that specialty is. How do you compete? If I'm only doing TikTok and I've mastered this because it's simple and because I've got an entire system and I see all the data because we don't have to concern ourselves about what's going on with fucking Reddit and what's going on with this. And this is something we're doing at our agency now. We're just completely stripping it down to make it as simple as possible, right? And so like if we want to get to 1 million a month, we just need to keep it simple. Like we just need to literally strip everything else. We've stopped doing Reddit, we've stopped doing Twitter, and we're just going to focus on organic, right? That's it. That's all we're going to do. We're just purely going to focus on organic, right? And so like at that point, like how do you compete with an agency who just goes all in on organic when you're trying to do a mixture of everything? Because we're getting all the data from organic, all our models that we work with do organic. And so like we get all the best data, we can iterate faster than anyone. That's all our focus is on. So obviously that's going to grow and that's going to grow better than anyone else who's trying to do multiple things. It's naive to think that you can do all these things and then wonder why am I not doing TikTok as well as Dylan? Because I'm just doing TikTok. Simplicity skills, right? And so like that's something you need to consider. And I'm going to drop this doc in the chat for everyone. And this is like super key that you really fucking ingrain this into your brain because this is super important. And I'm building out entire fucking in-depth modules about this shit in the new program. And this shit's crazy. Like it's taken so much time and I've just been doing like it's just retarded. I've probably put like 600 hours into it since December. Um, and so like that is like the simple way to scale, right? Like simplicity is key. And so yeah, that's pretty much it.